Story 41, The Duke's Choice. Title, * his grandmother chose a nobody for the Highland Duke. He agreed with every word she said until he met her. Engine, * J, the matchmaking meddler. Narrator, * the Duke's brother, Edmund Ashburn, younger by 4 years. Heroine, * Miss Cecily Vane, a debtor's daughter of 22, quiet, sharp-eyed, and proud in a way she has learned to keep hidden. Duke, * the Highland Duke of Kestremore, Callum Ashburn, feared across 3 counties for his cold efficiency. Setting, * Kestremore Hall, Northern England, a grand estate ringed by moorland and frost. Ending, * cherished at last. He surrenders his pride in the great hall before his grandmother and every guest. Mood, * rye, brooding right arrow sweeping tenderness. I was standing at the foot of the main stair when my grandmother summoned us both. That in itself was not unusual. Lady Aldris Ashburn, Dowager Duchess of Kestremore, had been summoning people to her sitting room since before I was born, and in my 32 years I had never once seen her summon in error. She had a gift, a terrifying, unerring gift, for knowing exactly what was needed before anyone else had thought to need it. My brother Callum called it meddling. Our grandmother called it stewardship. Neither of them was entirely wrong. "Edmund," she said, when I appeared in her doorway that Tuesday morning in November, "come in and close the door. Your brother will arrive in 4 minutes. He is presently arguing with the head groom about the state of the east pasture fence, and he will lose the argument in 3. I did not ask how she knew. I came in, closed the door, and sat. She was 71 years old and had the bearing of a woman who had never once in her life been late to anything. Her white hair was arranged with the precision of a general's battle plan, and her gray eyes behind their small spectacles had the quality of a tribunal. She folded her hands on the small writing table before her, and she said, without preamble, "I have chosen a bride for your brother." I said carefully, "He will not be pleased to hear it." "He is never pleased to hear anything useful," she said. "That is why I have not told him yet." Callum arrived in 4 minutes, exactly as she had predicted. He was tall and dark and perpetually set about the jaw in the way our father had been, and he came through the door still carrying the argument about the fence in the set of his shoulders. He looked at me. He looked at our grandmother. He understood immediately that something was being organized without his consent, and his expression did the thing it always did. It became very still and very courteous, which in Callum meant the opposite of pleased. "Grandmother," he said. "Sit down, Callum." He sat. He was 36 years old, the Highland Duke of Kestremore, the most efficient landowner in 3 northern counties, and the only man I had ever met who could make sitting in a chair look like a formal objection. Our grandmother opened the small drawer in her writing table and produced a letter, which she set before him without ceremony. "Vane," she said. "Cecily Vane of the Vane family, formerly of Whitecleft. She is 22, well-educated. She speaks French and reads Latin, which your daughters will require. She is in excellent health, and she has the kind of character that does not crack under pressure. I have known her mother since before either of you was thought of, and I know the family's difficulties are not of her making." Callum picked up the letter. He read it in the manner he read everything, which was with his face giving away nothing, and then he set it down. "The Vane family's difficulties," he said, "are of precisely the kind I described to you last spring when we had this same conversation. They owe more than the estate is worth. The father borrowed against everything, the estate was sold in August, and they are presently in rooms in York. I know their circumstances." "Then you know," he said very quietly, "that what you are proposing is the acquisition of a liability." There was a silence. I had learned long ago not to speak during Callum's silences with our grandmother. They were not silences of uncertainty. They were silences of 2 very intelligent, very stubborn people deciding which ground to hold. "I propose," our grandmother said, "that you invite Miss Vane to Kestremore for the month of December as a companion to me. Nothing more than that. If at the end of December you cannot see what I see, I will never mention it again." Callum looked at the letter. He looked at our grandmother. "You have already written to her mother," he said. It was not a question. Our grandmother's expression confirmed it was not. He stood, he straightened his coat. He looked, for one unguarded moment, like a man who has arrived at the foot of a cliff. He had no intention of climbing, and can see quite clearly that he is going to climb it anyway. 1 month, he said. He left. Miss Cecily Vane arrived on a Tuesday in early December, in a hired carriage that had seen better decades, wearing a gray wool traveling dress that was well-made and carefully brushed, and not quite warm enough for the northern moors. I was on the front steps when she came through the gate, because I had been curious and had no particular reason to hide it, and because Callum was, I suspected deliberately, inspecting the repairs to the east pasture fence. She stepped down from the carriage and looked at Kestermore Hall. Not the way most people looked at it, with the intake of breath, the tilted neck, the helpless response to its size and its severity. She looked at it the way a chess player looks at a board, steadily reading. Then she looked at me. "You are not the Duke," she said. Edmund Ashburn, his brother, the more congenial one, universally agreed. The corner of her mouth moved barely. I was not aware there was a competition. I liked her immediately. I brought her in, showed her to the rooms our grandmother had arranged, bright and warm and overlooking the south garden, which our grandmother had chosen with her usual uncanny precision, and left her to settle. She thanked me in the manner of someone who is accustomed to managing things herself and does not make a production of receiving help. Our grandmother, when I reported to her that evening, listened to everything I said and then remarked that she had been right about the character. Callum came back from the fence inspection at 4:30, which was exactly when he had planned to be back, because Callum planned everything. He came in through the side entrance, handed his coat and gloves to Ferris the butler, and passed through the front hall at the precise moment Miss Vane was crossing it to find the library. I was coming down the stairs and saw the whole thing. She saw him first. She stopped. She made the small, immediate adjustment of a woman who has been in difficult situations and knows how to compose herself in them. Nothing visible except the straightening of her spine and the lifting of her chin, very slight, very deliberate. He stopped. "Miss Vane," he said. "Your Grace," she said. Neither of them said anything else for a moment. Callum had the expression he wore when he was recalculating something, and Miss Vane had the expression of a woman who is perfectly calm and would like you to know it. "I hope the rooms are comfortable," he said. "They are, thank you, Your Grace. If you require anything, Ferris will see to it." "Of course." He inclined his head, she inclined hers. He went toward his study, she went toward the library. I stood on the stairs and watched them both disappear, and I thought, our grandmother is going to be insufferable about this. The month of December at Kestermore was not, as a rule, quiet. The estate's affairs did not slow for the season, and Callum's management of them was unrelenting. There were tenants to see, accounts to review, the matter of the east wing roof, the question of the North Woods timber rights, 2 disputes among the village that had been festering since October and required sorting. My brother sorted them all with the same impervious efficiency that he brought to everything, and at the end of each day he appeared at dinner looking precisely as composed as he had at breakfast, which I had long thought must cost him something, though I could not have said what. Miss Vane was a companion to our grandmother. This meant in practice that she read aloud to her in the mornings, accompanied her to the village twice a week, played chess with her, badly enough at first that our grandmother was engaged, and then better and better until by the second week our grandmother was actually concentrating, and managed, with a quiet steadiness I noticed more each day, to be exactly as useful as was required and no more visible than was comfortable. She was not performing, that was the thing. I have seen people perform deference in a great house, the careful smiles, the studied dimness, and she did none of it. She was simply herself, contained and clear-eyed, and if there was effort underneath that, she kept it to herself. Callum watched her. He thought I did not notice, but I notice most things. I simply rarely say so. In the evenings, when we gathered in the drawing room after dinner, his attention would come back to her between sentences, between pages, between moves on the chess board across the room. Not the attention of interest at first. The attention of a man who has been told a thing is one way and keeps finding evidence it is another. She caught him watching on the 9th evening. She did not look away. She met his eyes with the level steadiness she brought to everything, and then she looked back at her book, and the room went on around them as if nothing had happened. Callum picked up his brandy. He set it down without drinking from it. I said nothing. The first real conversation between them happened by accident, on a Wednesday afternoon in the second week. I know it was accidental because I was there, in the library, looking for a map I had mislaid, when Miss Vane came in to return 2 books to our grandmother's shelf and found Callum already at the far table with a ledger and a letter from his land agent. She had not expected him. He had not expected her. They both stopped in the doorway at the same moment and then both moved forward with the careful politeness of people who have decided to be reasonable. She shelved the books. He returned to his ledger. There was a silence that was not precisely comfortable but was not hostile either, the silence of 2 people occupying the same room and managing it. Then she said, without looking up from the shelf, "The timber writes in the North Wood." He looked up. "I beg your pardon." "The dispute. I heard your land agent's man mention it when I was walking back from the village yesterday." She straightened the spine of a book with one finger. "The right-of-way from Kestremore dates from before the current boundary markers, doesn't it? There was a survey in the 1750s. I thought there might be something about it in the estate records. My father had a similar situation in Whitecleft, and the resolution turned on the older survey." A pause. "You know estate surveying records," Callum said. "I know our family's former estate surveying records," she said. "One pays attention to what may be useful." He looked at her for a moment. Then he said, "The records from the 1750s are in the lower archive. Ferris can show you where." "I have already found them," she said. "I looked this morning in case they were relevant. They are, I think, the relevant page is marked." She set the marked volume on the edge of his table, nodded once, and left. Callum sat for a long moment looking at the volume. "I found my map and did not mention any of it." The timber rights dispute was resolved in a fortnight. Callum's solicitor wrote from York to say the older survey had carried the argument precisely as expected. Callum received this letter at breakfast, read it without expression, and then looked across the table to where Miss Vane was reading to our grandmother in the window seat. He said nothing, but he did not look away for a long time. Our grandmother, who misses nothing, chose the 3rd week of December to invite 12 people for a small gathering. A small gathering being, in Lady Aldris Ashkern's vocabulary, 2 days of dinner parties, an evening musicale, a morning of shooting, and what she called informal conversation, and what I would call a sustained examination of everybody's character. She did this every other year. It was not a coincidence that she had chosen to do it this December. The guests included Lord and Lady Penwick, Sir Martin Drey and his wife, the Hartwood sisters, both accomplished and both very aware of it, and Colonel Rafe Delamore, who was perfectly amiable and had been at school with Callum and regarded Miss Vane at dinner with the alert interest of a man who recognizes quality when he sees it. I watched that interest register on my brother's face across the dinner table. It was a very small thing, a very brief tightening at the jaw. He looked away. He spoke to Lady Penwick about the moors. Miss Vane, for her part, spoke to Colonel Delamore with the same composed ease she brought to everything, and did not look at Callum once, which I thought cost her something, though I could not have said how I knew. After dinner in the drawing-room, Miss Vane played. Our grandmother had asked her. Miss Vane is kind enough to play for us sometimes in the evenings, and she went to the pianoforte and played the way she did everything, without display, with absolute attention, giving the music exactly what it asked for. It was not a performance designed to impress. It was simply beautiful. The room was quiet. Callum was standing by the fire. He had not moved from that position in some minutes. He had the look, that particular look of a man who has arrived somewhere he had no intention of going and cannot identify the moment he began walking toward it. Colonel Delamore leaned toward me and said low, "She's remarkable." "She is," I said. "He's an idiot," Delamore said amiably of my brother. "He is coming to a conclusion," I said. "He does it slowly, he always has." The evening of the 2nd day, he found her in the winter garden. I did not plan to witness it. I was looking for our grandmother, who had said something about needing a shawl from the morning room, and the winter garden was on the way. The door was standing open and the candles inside were lit, and I heard their voices, not the words at first, but the register. His careful, her steady. I stopped. I am not proud of it. I stayed because my brother has been managed by difficulty for 36 years, and I had not, before this month, seen anything move him. "Miss Vane," he said, "I owe you an apology." A pause. "You do not, Your Grace." "I described you to my grandmother," he said, "before you arrived as a liability. I was thinking of the family circumstances. I was not thinking of you." Another pause longer. "I am aware," she said quietly, that my family's circumstances are not what they were. I'm also aware that your grandmother arranged this visit with intentions I have not misread. I am not asking you to feel what you do not feel, Your Grace, and I am not asking anything of you at all. I am only here as a companion to your grandmother, and at the end of December I shall leave, and that will be the whole of it. And if I do not want that to be the whole of it, the silence that followed was the kind that has weight in it. Then I would want to be quite certain, she said, that you are speaking from what you have discovered this month, and not from what Colonel Delamore said to you at dinner. A sound that might from any other man have been a laugh. From Callum it was almost one. He said you were remarkable, Callum said. I heard him. He was right. I know, she said, simply and without vanity. I went to find the shawl. I found I was smiling. That night I could not sleep, and I went down to the library at 1:30 in the morning, and I found Callum already there. He was standing at the window with a glass of brandy he had not drunk from, looking out at the dark moors. The fire had burned low. He did not turn when I came in. I poured myself a drink and sat in the chair nearest the fire and said nothing, because I have learned in 32 years that my brother talks better when he is not being listened to on purpose. After a while he said, she told me she was not asking anything of me. I heard. She said it as though she meant it. She did mean it, I said. That is rather her way. He turned from the window. In the low firelight his face had the particular look it got when he had arrived at something and was still not entirely sure how he had gotten there. She found the 1750s survey record, he said, which was not what he had been about to say, but was apparently what needed saying first. She did. Before I thought to look. Yes. He set his untouched brandy on the mantelpiece. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, when our grandmother said liability, I heard it as the family's debts, the estate's ruin, the social calculation. I was wrong about what she meant. Our grandmother, I said carefully, has never in her life used a word to mean only one thing. He looked at me. She meant the liability of Miss Vane finding someone better, I said, if you were too slow. He stood very still. Colonel Delamore, I added helpfully. The expression on my brother's face would have been, in a lesser man, something close to alarm. In Callum, it was merely the expression of a man who has found a very important document misfiled and is already calculating the corrective action. I see, he said. I thought you might, I said. He picked up his brandy, looked at it, set it down again, and went to bed. I sat by the dying fire for a little while longer and thought about what our grandmother had known in November, before any of us had laid eyes on Miss Cecily Vane, and I thought that perhaps stewardship was a better word for it after all. He came to our grandmother the following morning. She was at her writing table, and she looked up at him over her spectacles with the expression of a woman who has been waiting for a particular visitor and is not surprised he has arrived. I want to speak to Miss Vane's mother, he said. I thought you might, she said. I want it done properly. A letter first, and then if she is agreeable, I will go to York before Christmas. That is sensible. I should like Miss Vane to remain here until I have done so, if she is willing. I believe she will be willing, our grandmother said. I told you about her character. You did, he said. There was something in his voice I had not heard in a long time, something that was not efficiency or management or the careful administration of a very large estate. You were right. She folded her hands. She had the look of a woman who has always known how this would end and has simply been waiting for everyone else to catch up. I usually am, she said. He told Miss Vane at noon, in the morning room, with the winter light coming through the tall windows and the fire well made behind them, and I stayed out of it entirely because some things are not for brothers to witness. But I heard, afterward, from our grandmother, who heard it from Ferris, who had been in the hall with the entirely legitimate purpose of seeing to the fire, that Callum had said what he felt without the careful architecture of distance he usually built around himself, that he had told her what the month had shown him, that he had told her what it had cost him in the first days to watch her and still think liability, that he had told her, and this was the part our grandmother relayed with the particular satisfaction of someone whose plan has entirely succeeded, that he had never in 36 years met anyone who found the 1750s surveying record before he thought to look. She had laughed, apparently, a real one surprised out of her. He had apparently found this, our grandmother chose the word, undoing. He left for York 3 days before Christmas, and returned on Christmas Eve with Miss Vane's mother's blessing and a small box that had belonged to our grandmother, and that our grandmother had given him before he left. Our grandmother did not tell me this. I knew because I saw her hands when he came in, and they were empty for the first time in my memory of her wearing that ring. That evening in the great hall, before our grandmother and Ferris and the household gathered for the Christmas hymns, he put the ring on Cecily Vane's finger in front of all of them. She looked at him, he looked at her. The house went very quiet in the way a house does when something true happens inside it. "I was wrong about you," he said, which for Callum was practically a sonnet. "I know," she said, which was, I had come to understand, her manner of saying something much larger. Our grandmother, beside me, made no sound at all. But I felt, rather than heard, the soft exhale of a woman who has been right for a very long time and has finally been acknowledged. I put my arm around her. "You're insufferable," I told her. "You know that." "Yes," she said comfortably, "I really am." Outside, across the northern moors, the first snow of winter was beginning to fall, and inside Kestermore Hall the fire was high and the candles were lit, and my brother, the Highland Duke of Kestermore, feared across 3 counties for his cold efficiency, was holding the hand of a debtor's daughter and looking at her like a man who has finally stopped counting what things cost. I thought, this is what our grandmother saw in November, before any of us had even met her. I thought, she is, as she said, usually right. Word count, words. Duration, 30 minutes at 130 WPM *.